How's it going today? My name's Paul, um, and I don't know who might be viewing this or um, either directly related to what this video is about, or have a family member that is somehow involved in what I'm discussing. But I felt empowered in this to to um, to make this, and I had thought about it a little bit and was planning on doing it at some point. Um, Things have been gotten kind of busy, but I'll give a brief description. Um, Back in 2017, um, I had a situation and ended up in jail. And it was a very revealing experience. Um, One that changed the way I I I had to do something. I learned a lot. I um, gathered a lot, um, and I felt induced to to do something about it because I didn't know if anyone was going to do anything about it in general. Uh, like I said, I was in jail back in 2017, um, and I was looking at giving um, a brief tips on. I never went to prison, thankfully. That was a possibility, but I did not do that. Um, I was born April 15th, 1992, in Keene, New Hampshire, little southwestern town in New Hampshire. And, you know, I had a great bringing up, had lots of things. Um, didn't have a bad childhood. Um, some people can't always say that. Um, we had things that most people didn't. Um, I was a happy-go-lucky individual. I was a kid like anybody else, and wanted things. Wanted to be. Didn't know what I wanted, but anyway. Um, when I went, I had never been, and when I had gotten there, it was a very shocking experience. Um, a very controlled experience. Um, and I had spent a year there. for some things, and saw a lot of things as regards to nothing horrible, but that certain things that people I know, we all kind of end up in a situation that we didn't really plan on because of a very emotional reaction to something, and that uh, gets us in trouble. Um, and it kind of happens so sudden. It happens very quickly. It's almost like you don't have any control over it. I mean, you do, but getting to the point, my intention is with this to try and at least say that my I did what I said I was going to do, and create this little live thing here, um, that hopefully people will. And there's probably hundreds of thousands of videos of this, but um, I did a year and made friends. I shouldn't say I made friends. In fact, that's one of the things when I get into things here, that's most important is to not look at people as your friend when you're there. Um, there's no there is respect in there, and but there's also lawlessness in there as well. Um, but on to the facts. Um, the fact is your number one priority is not being there, is getting out of there. Nobody wants to be there. Um, and some people handle it well, and some people don't handle it well. When I first got there, I became suicidal, and then later got on some meds. And that was just a emotional shock of the situation, I think, rather than a specific event that happened, which um, I saw a counselor weekly. And if she said if she was a doctor, that she would have given me a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, and sadly, there's nobody nowadays, especially here in the public, that cares at all about people in the incarceration rehabilitation system. And, you know, we all kind of do bad things. You know, I think it's funny when people call themselves good, or I'm not bad because I didn't go to jail. We're all bad. None of us are good. Um, not one of us. Um, whether it's greed, whether it's sexual immorality, whether it's abusiveness to other individuals, um, whether it's our gossiping. Um, but like I said, the main expectation is that to not be at that place anymore. Um, and in it's going to be, one thing that you want to be able to come to terms with that it's going to be boring. There's only so many times you can play cards. There's only so many times you can go work out and have it not be boring. There's only so many times you do something over and over again, and to get into the mindset of mundaneness. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that I would say would be your most important thing, and you will cancel out a bunch of, well, how can I make my situation more exciting? And that's where a lot of people get into trouble, is they try to make their situation more exciting. Okay. Via gambling, believe it or not, getting into drugs, getting into gangs. All three things will definitely get you in there a lot longer. Um, the second thing is being able to stand up for yourself. And standing up for yourself in a way where you're not abusive, because that'll get you there. There is a hierarchy, okay, and it's there. And making sure you ride that fine line of standing up for yourself and but not being abusive. Okay. Because there's a lot of people in there, okay, majority, I would say, who genuinely understand, and when they see somebody, they can judge them and say, that guy's just trying to do his time. That guy's just trying to get through things. That guy just doesn't belong here at all whatsoever. And I had a lot of people come up to me and say that. I never had bad things happen to me in there as far as sexual things. Um, that'll lead to my next point. I never had any of that happen. Um, I did have some physical altercations, um, but they were more abrupt. That they weren't like, forget what you think you know or what you think you've heard, because it's not. I don't mean it's bad, but I think it definitely gets a track record of being a lot worse than what people think it is. And I'm not saying it's good, because it's not. Um, but always standing up for yourself, because and in these direct situations that I had regarding people asking for stuff, and if you lend something to somebody and they don't give it back, this is a double-edged sword. One, okay, you obviously don't have the thing that you gave them, and number two, this person can go around and say you're not doing anything about it, which did happen to me. And me and another individual went to this person's cell and said, you're going to give that back. And this person knew we didn't have any intentions or plans, but those plans would develop as we went along. Um, so always standing up for yourself when people might say things to you openly, talking back without being abusive, because disrespect or like abusiveness will be interpreted as disrespect. Meaning, if I were to call you a bitch in jail, okay, you would probably be telling me we're going in a cell right now, because that would make you, if you don't, then you're going to make yourself look bad. I had one instance where, and I was out of line more than this other person, but in the name of sticking up for yourself, I had to do it. And people will say, "Oh, you have to fight in jail and prison." You don't have to. You need to stick up for yourself, because people will respect that. And if word gets around that you don't, things are going to be a problem. Okay. Self respect, not just respect, self respect. And then people will respect you back. Okay. It'll make your time very easygoing. Um, Obviously, what you're in there for says a lot about what happens, but most people won't even mess around with you if you've got something really bad that you went in there for. They won't even talk to you. They won't even say anything to you. You will. There's a table. We had tables where there were certain people, and those people were pretty much on the lower end of the stick. Nobody messed with them. They had things for, you know, child stuff, stuff that was really bad. Um, and Nobody messed with them. And when I mean nobody messed with them, I mean no one was asking them, "Hey, you want to eat? Hey, do you want to do anything?" But third, I'll move on here. The third point: do not, and I mean in every way and shape and form of the word, do not ever get in a debt. I never did. Um, a lot of the times, and it is true, when you first get there, people more or less in jail, that stuff doesn't really happen as much. But in prison, people will try to come up to you and will come up to you and start to try to give you things. Okay. And then eventually they'll sit there and go, "I gave you all that stuff, you kind of owe me." And this doesn't really happen. It didn't happen to me, but it happens if you go somewhere not jail related. Um, if you go to like prison, they'll sit there. They have multiple people who will come up to you and say, "Hey, man, how's it going? Hey, you need this, you need that. Oh, don't do this or don't do that." And then they'll come probably a week later and say, "Hey, I gave you all that information. You kind of owe me a little bit." And don't ever be too outgoing when you first get there, ever. Don't attract attention. But most importantly, don't ever go to a gambling table without money to put down. Whenever I played cards, and sometimes we didn't play for money and sometimes we did, Don't ever accept anything that, especially when you first get there, because it's a tall tale sign. When somebody offers you something when you first get there, they're probably going to try and get it back. And when you say, well, I thought you gave that to me, not going to work. Uh, so don't ever get into debts, ever. Um, what else? I think there's a lot of problems, and it's its own kind of world. Um, so you have to be willing to, don't associate with, unfortunately, sex offenders ever. A majority of them have child things on their record. People, you will be included in their group and looked at like that if you do. I didn't want anything to do with them anyway, so I never got involved with them anyway. Short of, hey, you done with the microwave? Or, hey, you done with this? Or, you know what I mean? Just kind of daily life things, not like, hey, do you want to go sit down for a bit and read or whatever, or play a game? No. I was lucky that I didn't have any of that on me. Um, so people were wanting to sit with me. Um, People worked out with me. They asked me to play cards with them. They asked me to walk around. As a new person, I didn't figure out what the term was, but there were a couple people who took me under their wing. And this is the most important thing to look at when you're looking at relationships in there, and French, not friendships. Okay. To look at it as a business kind of thing without the business aspect. The way you look at like a coworker, right? You associate with them, you're friendly with them, but you're not like, hey, let's go get involved in something. You know what I mean? And that's an important aspect, to definitely have that mindset of your business. Um, that's a main thing. So the another thing, don't spend too much time talking with guards. Guards are corrupt, first of all. Um, they it's an obvious thing that there's definitely things coming in and out via them. Um, it's a well-known fact. Obviously, I never gave any specifics, um, because you'll make yourself look like the worst person you could possibly look like in there, and that would be a snitch. You would be a rat. Um, and all someone has to do is just see you. It doesn't have to be that way. It just has to look that way. Okay, and that should be an most people know that someone who's talking with them. But anyway, most of them are dirty, especially when you look into prisons. Um, so don't associate with them. Very much. Short from getting certain things. That's it. I was friendly with a couple of guards there. And but these certain guards were halfway decent. They obviously were involved in some things. I would maybe guess. I don't know. But they kind of the guards definitely they know about things. They know who's who. They know what's what. They talk with inmates also. It's kind of hypocritical that uh, it's kind of hypocritical. But the other thing is you'll be asked probably what you're there for by other inmates. Okay. More specifically, in prison, they'll ask you for your paperwork. Um, it's kind of a hassle, um, but just being honest. If you do have something, um, and you know that there's kind of like a gray area, probably one of the people will come up to you, and your best bet is just be honest and explain the gray area. Okay, where that person, where you are in the hierarchy system, is not important. Okay, where you are on the respect level with other people is important. The way you carry yourself. Okay, because in prison, if there's a lot of people who went to jail, you behave a lot different in jail than you would in prison. I didn't go to prison, so I wouldn't know exactly, but um, if you're going to be a clown, um, you can be a clown in jail. Okay. Um, but I can guarantee you're not going to be a clown in prison. Um, you're going to regret it. That's just my thought. So just keeping it, be selfish. Um, what else? What else? What else? What else? Oh, commissary. Commissary is a double-edged sword. Okay. It's more of a beneficial thing than it is a negative thing, but you can definitely end up in some situations. And again, riding the fine line of when people see you either going back to your cell every Sunday, we would have commissary and things would come in. I usually had a bag every week. Sometimes I had $2,000-3,000 worth in my account at one point. Um, and a person who was my friend who I had already, we had been helping each other out. We did things together and stuff like that. Just made our time go by a little bit quicker. Um, he was um, he was a good kid, 19 probably, and he also was with this other guy, and he was a big guy. He was a big black dude who came from the prison when we were at jail. And we ate together, and just being honest about things is important. People can find out about whatever they want to. They just got to make a call. They just need to look in the paper. Um, they have as hypocritical as it sounds, they have ins and outs with guards. People are going to find out about your shit. Don't think you're going to hide it, because you're not. But the most important thing is carrying yourself in a certain way of self-respect. And that anybody, you go in there with the worst stuff. Maybe not. Don't you go in there with some bad stuff. And if you have a level of self-respect, people will be much more open to you. You carry yourself in a certain way, you know. The respect thing gets thrown into some categories that I think it doesn't really belong in. As far as like, oh yeah, this is the streets, respect. Da, da, da. No, it's just genuine. It's wholesome. Some people don't abide by what is true respect. They abide by a very negative, toxic kind of respect. But the good ones will come out of the woodwork. And eventually, over time, your time will be made easier. But always be willing to accept that things are going to be very mundane. They're going to be very, very mundane after a while. You can go to something you go to something 1,000 times, but that's kind of like everything else, It's kind of like out here. It's the same thing. I've been out now for over 3-4 years now. Have my own PC business. Um, you know, things for people who are newly released and stuff. Unfortunately, get thrown into a category. I've struggled with work, being at places of living has been an issue. And the system honestly doesn't care. Society kind of, in a way, ostracizes you. Believe me, if you show up to a job interview and there's 2 or 3 other people, believe me, they're not going to pull your file first. So that would be my next kind of thought process video, sort of. But sticking to yourself. Be willing to stick to yourself and just remember the main goal: getting out. Okay. There are going to be instances, and I'm not saying they're going to happen, but instances where keep your mouth quiet, hear no, see no. What's the other one? Say no. Hear no evil, see no evil. I don't know how that goes. But don't ever be talking about stuff that happened. If people get word of it, which they probably will, that you talk about things that are going on, you're going to make yourself an even worse problem. The best thing to do is, if you do have a counselor, and depending on what it is you're talking about, if you're going through things that are if someone is being a certain way to you, you have to stick up for yourself, because the alternative, and it's not like you're gonna have. I never went to prison, so in there, depending if you've got bad stuff, also sticking up for yourself. That's why it's number two on my list. Should be number one, but number one is remembering getting out, or remembering things are going to be mundane. They're going to be boring, and accepting that and remembering that. Um, but on my last point, remembering you're probably going to be asked what you're there for, and being truthful about it, because like I said, people are going to find out. They have their ways. It's not impossible. It's very easy. It's not difficult at all. They get the paper, so you're not going to get away with anything. Um, and I do that. I do it. Um, so, but there were some positive aspects. You're going to get to know people. People are going to, depending on what you have. Like if you do have sex offender stuff, I would say that people are probably, at least the majority of them, aren't going to do stuff with you. I never had anything to do with those kinds of charges. Um, but I can tell you that they were the bottom of the barrel. Don't associate with them. Don't talk with them. Don't say anything to them. And it's not because you're a bad person. It's because you will be put in their category. Um, you're a friend of them. I know this was not a big thing where I went, but do not associate, or concerning like sex stuff, don't ever get involved with relationships there like that. Um, that'll be really bad. That would be very bad. But what else? Just do your thing and concentrate on you, concentrate on getting out, concentrate on the plan, focusing on day to day. That's another thing. But that kind of goes into the first point of focusing on day to day. Don't, depending on how long you're doing there. Um, but yeah, like I said, there needs to be more acknowledgement. A lot of people are getting out, and society has kind of a very like black and white opinion of things, and they don't care. I don't think they're going to, and I think people need to start making people care, because when these people come out and we're sitting here, kind of ostracizing them from jobs, and ostracizing them from places of living, you know, and they have already been punished. A person has already been punished. They're out, and that should be a new chance for an individual. Um, if you didn't get a life sentence, you shouldn't be serving a life sentence. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of the times, people get out, and we talk about recidivism and things like that. Well, we contribute to their recidivism just as much as they do, because we keep them from a job, we keep them from a house. Um, they're going to find a way to make ends meet, to survive. And that's what's going to happen. Um, not only for them, but for the community in general, so that we don't have to worry about that. So, like I said, I felt pretty empowered to make this, and I had been planning on doing something for a while. And, I hope no one ever has to do that. You have to make sure that you always stay kind of acknowledgement. A lot of us, I did some stuff when I was younger, and, we react emotionally to certain things. You know, People try to like make themselves look like a different, like they don't do that, but in reality they do, and they know it. Um, so to always keep a level head, and if you are planning on having to do some kind of time, that you kind of have a rule to go by. So, and that's what kind of helped me. So, um, hope you have a good day. God bless, and um, you know, stay stay real.